morning and welcome to Plugged In Switched Off, the second Plugged In Switched Off online safety seminar from Barnardos. Last year, of course, was all about screen time. This year, based on research with yourselves and others, what we're looking at is cyberbullying. My name is Anton Savage. I'm going to be your host through this morning for what promises to be a very busy morning. We're going to be hearing in a couple of seconds from Suzanne Connolly, the CEO of Barnardos, who'll set the scene for the day. We're also going to be hearing from Cleanna Purdue, who's from the Barnardos online safety programme, and she'll be explaining what our trainers are seeing and what they're learning in the schools where they are doing the training programs, and quite a number of schools over the last 12 months. We're also going to be hearing from a member of the Webwise Youth Panel by the name of Prachi, who's going to be giving us her opinion on what needs to be done to support children in the face of cyberbullying. We'll be hearing as well from Jane McGarrigle from Webwise about what principals might need to do or what supports they might need to help them in tackling the issue of cyberbullying in their schools. Not only are we going to get a school perspective, we're also going to get a governmental perspective, because Judith Lyons from the Department of Education is going to be talking about work underway to review the action plan on bullying and the anti-bullying procedures for schools, which of course were published back in 2013, and there has been a significant development in the online world since then, and the Act needs to be changed, or the action plan needs to be changed to incorporate those changes. We'll hear from government. We'll also hear from the tech industry, because coming up we'll have Susan Moss, who's Public Policy Manager from TikTok, and we'll hear from Ian Bundred from YouTube, two of the most obviously significant platforms for use among young people. So we'll hear what the tech industry and those particular tech giants are doing in respect of cyberbullying. And then at the end of all that, we'll have a panel from representatives throughout the day with another Webwise youth panelist, that by the name of Billy Constantino, will be joining us, and we'll be getting a view of all of the participants to wrap up the day. If there's any questions that you have as we go through, you can put them in as comments on YouTube, or you can email onlinesafety@barnardos.ie. And if you get a response from Therese, don't worry, Therese works with Barnardos and she is the right person to be responding to you. I hope you enjoy this morning, and I hope you find it very useful. To get things formally underway and to set the scene, will you please welcome the Chief Executive of Barnardos, Suzanne Connolly. Very welcome, Suzanne.
Thank you, Anton. Hello, everyone. It's absolutely fantastic to be here today at this second Plugged In, Switched Off webinar, which Barnardos is running in partnership with Google.org. And as Anton was saying, the theme for this event is based on feedback that we got from you last year when you said you wanted to hear more about cyberbullying and online behaviour. So I want to tell you a little bit about Barnardos. We're delighted to be celebrating our 60th anniversary this year. We were established in 1962. And last year we worked with 17,000 parents and children in our centres across Ireland, in schools and in communities. Now in 2019, Barnardos became a trauma-informed organisation, and that's all about recognising the impact of adverse childhood experiences on children, and the fact that these experiences and their impact can last a lifetime unless the appropriate services and supports are put in place. And as you all know who are listening today, bullying can be and can have a lifelong impact without the appropriate services and support. So in Barnardos, our approach to bullying is all about prevention and early intervention. And as you all know, friendships change and evolve over time and throughout a child's childhood. And children will fall out with friends, develop new friends, become part of different friendship groups. And this will happen online and offline. And that is completely normal and what you would expect. And it's important for parents, when they're trying to support their children through the various friendships they will have throughout their childhood, that they recognise the skills they already have as parents, and they use those skills to have conversations with their children. And remember, all of you listening today, you will have warm, attuned, loving relationships with your children. And you're going to notice if your child's behaviour changes. if your child has a pain in their tummy, or they're suddenly talking about having a pain in their tummy. They're a bit reluctant to go to school. Your child who's normally been warm and bubbly and happy suddenly becomes quite withdrawn. And that's the time to calmly take a breath yourself and think, I want to think about how I can have a conversation with my child about what might be going on within their friendship groups. Now, of course, the approach that you will take will depend on whether you think your child is being neglected, rejected, or bullied by their peers. And we would advise in Barnardos, it's important not to get overly involved unless it is really necessary. So instead, to talk with your child and problem solve with your child. However, if the bullying behaviour is targeted, it's repeated, it's purposeful, and it's harmful, then obviously you will need to take steps to intervene. We would say in Barnardos, it's really important to encourage your child to have a variety of friendships and friends, and not to be dependent on one friendship group. So you might think about, obviously, your child having, a sports club friendship circle, or a drama circle, or friends on the road, whatever it is that works. But again, just to stress that point, not to be overly dependent on a small group of friends or one friendship group. Now, in Barnardos, we always say that all feelings are okay, but all behaviour isn't. And that applies to whether you're the child who is bullying, the child who is bullied, or indeed the child or children who are bystanders. And one of the things that we need to do as adults, as parents, as teachers, is really think about what are the feelings behind the bullying behaviour. So the child who is bullying may be feeling envy, hostility, aggression, or jealousy. The child who is being bullied may be feeling fear, shame, and indeed a lot of hurt. And the bystander may be feeling relieved, it's not them who's being bullied, but also feeling quite helpless and not knowing what to do. So for the adults involved in these children's lives, be they parents or teachers or other relatives, it's important to be calm and to listen, to take a breath before you have the conversation with your child. If you're the parent of a child who is doing the bullying, you need to obviously be very clear with your child that behaviour is not okay, but maybe explore what the feelings are or the attitudes which is motivating that behaviour. And obviously encourage your child to say sorry and to make reparation. If you're the parent of a child who's being bullied, you may need to think about how you can encourage your child to be brave, to challenge appropriately, and obviously you're giving them all your love and attention while you're having this conversation with them. And if you're a parent of a child who's a bystander, then you may need to think about how can you help your child be a supportive friend, be brave, and also practice and role play how they might have those conversations. So Cliona will be going into more detail about the conversations we have with children about friendship skills, both online and offline. And I'm sure you'll enjoy hearing from her later. I'd now like to welcome Anton back onto the stage. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. Much appreciated. And Suzanne there has some very interesting numbers in respect of both 60 years of Barnardos being in operation, but if you look at the yearly numbers, 17,500 parents and children engaged with by the organisation. There's a similarly impressive number, which is 23,000, because 23,000 is the number of children that the Barnardos Online Safety Programme team have engaged with in the last 12 months. And to give us a sense of what they have learned, what they have seen, and what that programme consists of, I want to welcome the person responsible for it, Cliona Purdue. There you go, Cliona, all yours.
Thank you very much. Thanks very much, Anton. So my name is Cliona Purdue, and I'm the training executive of the Online Safety Programme. So what I do is I update the content of our workshops and I train the trainers. So I'm just going to explain a little bit about what we do in our workshops. I'll then explain what we're hearing from children and young people, and then I'll end about kind of what we say in our parent workshops. So just kind of what we do at the Online Safety Programme, it's a 5-year partnership with support from google.org. We do workshops in schools. We target primary schools, so 3rd class to 6th class, so they're kind of 8 to 12-year-olds. We also do lesson plans for teachers, and then we also do parent webinars or workshops as well. With support from google.org, we can offer this to primary schools at a reduced cost, so it's kind of €50 an admin fee, and you get 4 workshops for that. And what a really good day for us would be if we do children workshops during the day, and then we also have the parent workshop in the evening, and that's kind of how we know that the messages are going home. So we also signpost to Be Internet Legends, which is the Google kind of education resource. There's a really cool video game that children really, really love, so they're learning about online safety, but in a really fun way. They also have lesson plans for teachers, and there's parent activities too, and their messages kind of complement ours as well. So how it works is we have 30 trainers all around Ireland that are really experienced, and we hope that any primary school in Ireland can kind of avail of our workshops. So all you need to do, so you just need to email us at onlinesafety@barnardos.ie, and myself, Therese, or Aoife will get back to you, and we'll try and connect you with trainers in your area. We also have lesson plans and videos for teachers. So our workshops are 45 minutes long. And there's a lot to kind of pack in those 45 minutes. So these lesson plans, they were done during lockdown when the schools were closed, and there's kind of for remote learning. But they are on our website too if you want to kind of expand on the messages that we had in our workshops. And it's the same characters, and there's worksheets as well. But in general, today is obviously this webinar about cyberbullying, and you've heard from Suzanne explaining the reason. So 30% of you from last year said that you wanted to learn more about cyberbullying. But then also this is definitely what we're seeing across the country. So kind of when trainers go into schools, it doesn't matter if it's a small country school or if it's an inner city school, cyberbullying seems to be a big issue across the board. And very often that's why we're kind of going in the first place, because there's been a cyberbullying incident, and then you get the online safety trainer to go in and kind of address it. And what we're hearing from schools, it's group chats. There could be a 5th class WhatsApp group, and people are excluded from it, or everybody's invited in it except for one person in the class. It's fake accounts, whether it be make a fake TikTok account and prank your friends, or more seriously, maybe impersonating your friends on Instagram or different things like that. It's gaming as well, so it's kind of mean comments in gaming. And it can really affect the school day, and that's kind of what we're hearing from teachers. Because yes, it does happen at home, but for example, there was a school, once the 5th class had a pact not to tell the teacher or parents about what happened online. But then there was a TikTok video, and then somebody commented cringe on the video, and then the next day in school, there was 2 sides of the classroom, and they weren't talking to each other, and people were crying, and obviously the teachers have to get involved in that situation. So it's definitely widespread. And just how we address it in our workshops. So we hope to empower children to make good choices online, to think critically, and most importantly, to be kind. So we take a positive approach to online safety, meaning that we don't block or ban. We think that the internet can be a great resource, but it's really important that children learn the skills to use the internet in a safe, but then also a positive way. So they do this by learning 4 simple rules. So S is for stay safe. That's about personal information and passwords. T is for think smart, about kind of people that you might meet online, but also information. A is for ask for help, which is a big message in all of our workshops. It's always, if you're in any way uncomfortable or overwhelmed, it's really important to talk to somebody and not to kind of keep those feelings bottled in. And then lastly, it's OR is for reach out and be kind. And that's a really important message that we have. So A and OR, is kind of about what we're talking about today, which is about kind of cyberbullying. So I'm just going to show you how we do that in our workshop. So we have a few we do group discussions. It's very child-centered. Our trainers don't speak at children. It's really kind of listening to them, because I'm sure you're all aware, if you are a teacher or if you have children yourself, they do know a lot about the internet already. So for example, this here is Rob. This is one of the scenarios we have. So Rob is part of an online safety band. So he has his video on YouTube. And the comments start out quite nice, but then do get a bit mean towards his friend Tig. So he's in a pickle and he doesn't know what to do. So what should Rob do? So should he A, defend his friend, write something nasty back? B, ignore the messages but text Tig to see if he's okay? C, if Tig doesn't want to do anything, but he can report the comments if they're violent? Or D, do nothing, it isn't my business. So before we get to kind of this scenario, we would have kind of asked children to be upstanders online as opposed to bystanders. So an upstander is somebody who sees bullying happening, but reaches out and kind of intervenes in a positive way. A bystander is obviously somebody who watches, potentially might like something or share something, but doesn't write the mean comments themselves, but they don't do anything to help the situation. So this is kind of a hands up, hands down situation. And a lot of people say A, which is defend your friend, and we say that's wonderful that you want to stand up for your friend like that, but is it a good idea to write something nasty back? So we kind of role play what actually could we say back instead that might not add fuel to the fire. So it's a lot of kind of giving them the words that might help the situation. B, we think is a fantastic idea because that you are being that upstander. You may not be posting publicly, but you are still reaching out and you are being kind. Now, a lot of people still say D, which is kind of do nothing, it isn't my business, and that's something that we want to try and address. So yes, we do this in our workshops, but you at home as a parent or as a teacher as well, to really try and encourage children to be that upstander, to reach out and to be kind. It can be in the classroom, it can be face-to-face, it doesn't need to be online, but it's really important if they see their friend suffering that they reach out in some way. Another example is those group chats that we've heard so much about. So for example, this here is IFA. It can be quite overwhelming, you know, as a young person. It can be overwhelming as an adult with all the different WhatsApp groups. So this is kind of how we approach this in our workshop. So IFA gets 52 messages, but some of the messages that she gets are videos that are not very nice to look at. So it's horrible videos of animals being injured. Now, in a slide that you can see, it says that Aoife hasn't slept for the last 2 nights, but she's not the admin of the group. What should she do? So in situations like this, it's again, talk to the person beside you. What do you think you should, how we should help Aoife? And that can kind of help their empathy to kind of, you know, put themselves into other people's shoes. So very often they say, mute the group. And we say, yeah, that's okay. A lot of times they do say, talk to the parents, which is wonderful, and that's exactly what we want them to do. Often they do say leave the group as well, which we say, yes, that is an option for you, but just if it is a 5th class WhatsApp group, you might want to be involved. So again, we role play, how do you write back to somebody and say, actually, I don't really like those videos, can you please stop sending them? And that's something that we hear from children that they find hard because they think something is funny, so they just assume that everybody thinks it's funny. So kind of trying to kind of role play that, you know, maybe somebody else might not like that and kind of getting that message across. But in general, a lot of what we do is for children, so that's why it's really important to listen to them. So we do have focus groups. We have another one this year in June, but this is from year 1. What was interesting was 37% of children were more worried about mean messages from people that they know rather than 32% of people that they didn't know. And then this is just like an acknowledgement that it's really hard being a young person at the moment. So this is a girl, 13 to 15-year-old. So being excluded by friends, a lot of things are organised over text, like meetups and activities. It's really hard to ask your friends, am I being excluded from the group chat, without them thinking you are clingy or intrusive. So I'm just going to end with kind of what we say in our parent webinars and parent workshops. So we think at Barnardos the most important thing that you can do to keep your child safe online and to help them if they are being bullied is to keep checking in with them. So we think communication and an open dialogue is the most important way to approach online safety. So yes, parental controls are important, and yes, it's important to keep up to date with what your child is doing, but most importantly is kind of to check in with them. So there's lots of kind of conversation starters there of how you can kind of start those conversations to check in with your child to make sure that they know that you're there in case anything happens to them and you're always there to support them. So thank you very much for listening. I'm going to hand over now back to Anton, but I'm really interested, especially to hear it next from Prachi.
Thank you very much, Cliona. And Cliona talked about the importance of listening to children, listening to young people. That's what we're going to do now, because our next guest is a member of the Webwise Youth Advisory Panel. She's in school in Sion Hill. Now, she's not a primary school student, obviously, she's 16, but she nonetheless brings a significant insight into the experience of young people. Prachi, do join us, please. This is Prachi, and as I say, part of the panel. How are you?
Good.
Have a seat. The experiences of cyberbullying, particularly that Cliona was outlining there, are they the same among your age group? When you, I don't mean from your own personal experience, but when you see cyberbullying, what are the kind of behaviours that you see? What's the evidence of it?
I think one thing with cyberbullying, especially as we grow up, is that it becomes a lot more indirect. Like, of course, what Cliona was saying about mean messages and fake accounts is still a huge thing, but I think with this specific age group, people don't know that they're being bullied until long after, when they reflect on it and are like, wait, that actually made me really uncomfortable. Maybe I should have said something, or maybe I should have told someone. And I think the biggest reason why is because cyberbullying has almost been normalized to the extent where people think that they're being too sensitive or overdramatic, when in reality, it's really detrimental to their mental health and it's harmful in the long run. So I think one of the biggest examples of indirect cyberbullying would be outing or doxing, where a person, 90% of the time, it's a friend, and that probably adds to why people think they're not being cyberbullied. Where the friend posts like sensitive or humiliating or just secret information online as a joke or a prank. It doesn't even have to have like malicious intent behind it. It could just genuinely be a joke. And what the person can do in the moment is just laugh about it, be like, oh, that was funny. But they reflect on it, they look back on it, they're like, I'm not comfortable with all of this information being online. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons of indirect cyberbullying, is because it's done by someone you know, so you can't imagine that they're the bully.
And I assume as well, the way you describe it, to some extent, they don't imagine that they're the bully.
Yeah, I think so as well, because I think people don't know what actually amounts to as cyberbullying. Like, we've been learning all through primary school that cyberbullying is when someone calls you a mean word online, or someone like says something rude on like an Instagram post. But all of these nitty-gritty things we don't learn about. So yeah, I think that is a very like possible like explanation to why people bully, because they don't know that they're bullying.
The other thing I suppose as well is from a child or young person's perspective, it's not just that one person does or says something. The experience of having a lot of people either exclude you, or so any one of the people who are doing the bullying may not feel that they're doing anything particularly extreme. But when you add it up from the recipient's perspective, it can be an awful experience.
Yeah, because I think, as you said, that a lot of people sort of like join in on the joke almost. People think that it's funny, and the more people that join in, the more people think that, oh, this is like, the person's fine with it because there's so many people doing it and they're all their friends. But from the recipient's point of view, there's like 20 or 25 people that they're really close with and probably like really like, calling them mean things or like doing something that they're not comfortable with. So yeah, I think when a lot of people gang up together, it almost like exacerbates the whole thing.
What then do you think can be done? I mean, from the, whether it be a parent's perspective or from a school's, let's start with schools. From schools' perspective, what can be done to prevent cyberbullying?
I think schools should essentially have two approaches when it comes to preventing cyberbullying as a whole and just avoiding the issue like to begin with. And I think one of it should be through a comprehensive curriculum, which we do have in a lot of schools, teaching us about digital literacy and online well-being, the importance of knowing that just because you're anonymous on screen doesn't mean you can just do anything without facing the consequences. Learning about digital legislation and what exactly happens when you do something wrong online. The importance of staying safe online and to not engage with content or fake accounts that might lead to cyberbullying. And then another one, which is applicable both online and offline, would be teaching kids tolerance from a young age, teaching them about inclusivity and acceptance and diversity growing up, both online and offline, so they respect people's opinions, whether that's on Instagram or whether that's in person when they're having a conversation. And that could definitely be really effective when they're dealing with people when they grow up as well, because they know that it's okay to have different opinions as others, but just be respectful.
I think from a parent's perspective, cyberbullying is probably one of the worst horrors, because at least with traditional real bullying, I mean non-virtual bullying, when you came home from school, to some extent it was over, there was safety in the house, whereas to know that people could be up in their room on social media and being victimised in what should be a safe environment. From a parent's perspective then, what advice would you give, or what do you think parents can do to support kids?
I think definitely I agree that parent-child relationships when it comes to the online world are really complex, because there's a huge digital divide, and the social media that the parents are on is definitely not the same as what the child is on. And that could lead to a lot of miscommunication, misunderstanding, which could lead to parents making like rash decisions because from protective instinct to like take away social media or take away the phones so cyberbullying doesn't happen again. But I think that's a really unhealthy way to deal with an issue such as big as cyberbullying. So I think the main thing that parents could do to support children who are being cyberbullied is to communicate and to listen and to learn together, whether that's like sitting on the couch for 30 minutes and talking about what exactly happened, how it could have happened, and what could be done to prevent it from happening again. If that's like sitting down and learning about how to block people or how to unfollow people that you don't necessarily know or like or might cyberbully you, and to focus on the child's mental health, because I think a lot of people think that when you block someone on who's cyberbullying you, it's over. But in reality, it affects the child long after the cyberbullying's taken place. It could affect their mental health or their body image, and the list goes on and on. So providing them with the resources and the help they need to like recover from the bullying almost, and to ensure that they're okay and whatever the cyberbully did, like it was wrong and it's not their fault, would be really supportive.
But at the heart of that is you start by sitting down and listening and talking.
Yeah. I think communication is definitely key, especially what I was talking about, the digital divide. Like, misunderstandings could sort of break the relationship, because if a child's phone is taken away, they're not going to come to the parent again, ask if cyberbullying happens again, because they're scared of losing it. Because social media and the internet is good to some extent, and every child does need it. It's really important for our growth and for our minds. And you can't just take away a whole thing because part of it is bad. So through communicating and through listening and through dealing with it in a positive, healthy manner would nurture the relationship more, so the child could be really open with their online experiences.
Prachi, it has been a great pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That is Prachi, folks. Much appreciated. Now, we're going to stay on this theme with the Webwise ambassador, because Jane McGarrigle from Webwise is going to share some of the training that they do in terms of internet safety. Webwise obviously being Ireland's Safer Internet Centre, and also they coordinate Safer Internet Day. So I'll hand over now to Jane. Very welcome, Jane.
Thanks very much, Anton. Good morning, everybody, and thanks very much to Barnardos and Cliona and all the team for inviting us to contribute to this important discussion. This is indeed an important area for our organisation, and I will talk to you in just a minute about some new training that we've developed for educators in the area of cyberbullying that will be available shortly. A little bit of information about our organisation first, though. If you're not familiar with Webwise, we are the Irish Internet Safety Awareness Centre, as Anton just said. We promote safer, better internet use among children and young people. And you'll see behind me there, these are our core pillars of work. We develop education resources, so these are freely available to schools. They're aligned to the curriculum, and they address topics such as cyberbullying, digital media literacy, image sharing, sexting, privacy, and lots more, and lots of the topics Prachi actually just talked about there as well. We also provide training in CPD, so I'm going to talk to you about a specific new online course that we have available for educators, but there's lots of other online courses available through our colleagues in the Professional Development Service for teachers, and schools can also access in-school support through our colleagues in the Health and Wellbeing team and Digital Technologies team in the Professional Development Service for teachers. So some super supports available in this area for schools. Listening to and involving young people is central to our work, and really pride ourselves on doing this well. So we are very privileged to be supported by a dedicated youth advisory panel, and you've just heard Prachi there, who I think brilliantly is a brilliant representative for our youth advisory panel, and you'll hear from Billy later, but they're part of 30 to 35 teams from across Ireland who make up our youth advisory panel, and they feed into all areas of our work, into our campaigns. They help test our resources, and very importantly, they act as a voice for their peers on issues important to them, online safety issues important to them. So they're essential to all our work. We also have support schools to build homeschool links through our Webwise Parents Hub, which I'll talk a little bit about in a few minutes. And as Anton said, we are the coordinator of Safer Internet Day in Ireland, which is a great initiative for schools to get involved in. And we do other various awareness raising campaigns around the year. But this morning, I'm going to talk to you about a new online course we've developed in partnership with PDST Technology and Education, and it's all about addressing cyberbullying, understanding, preventing and responding to cyberbullying. This course is basically, it's an introduction to the topic for teachers and a little bit of background to how we started the design process. We sat down with our colleagues and we sat down with educators in focus groups, and we wanted to find out, I suppose, where they were at with this topic, what they wanted out of CPD, and we know from research and you know, recent consultations that more training in CPD is required in this area. So we wanted to answer some key questions, and what we found from the consultations was some teachers didn't feel that confident in this area. Some teachers didn't feel like they maybe understood the definition of bullying, or if they were able to clearly recognise if it was a bullying incident, because we know cyberbullying is very nuanced. You know, some incidents can be very extreme, but some can also be quite subtle. They also felt maybe that they weren't as equipped as they would like to be if they were dealing with an incident, or if an incident arrived, or you know, if they're the person that should be investigating or not. So we wanted to answer all those questions, as well as look at the really important prevention as well. So this is some of the course learning outcomes, which I'll talk through in the next slide. The course is a 2-hour course, and it's self-directed. So educators, teachers, school leaders can do this in their own time. And it will be available online through the PDST Technology in Education website. There's a post-primary and a primary version. So the post-primary version will be available in September, and the primary version will be available in the new year. So there's 3 lessons. We look at understanding cyberbullying, preventing cyberbullying, and responding to cyberbullying. In the first lesson, so we look at the definitions of cyberbullying and what the Department of Education definitions are as well, the anti-bullying procedures and guidelines. Prachi mentioned legislation there. We look at the law on cyberbullying, and in particular the new Harmful Harassment, Communications and Offences Act 2020, also known as COCO's law. So we look at the legal framework in this area. And we also look at the prevalence of cyberbullying, what the latest research is telling us. We look at the impacts of cyberbullying. We look at the platforms cyberbullying is taking place on, and those kind of common forms of cyberbullying that Cleana just highlighted as well. So this very much gives educators an introduction to the topic. In lesson 2, we look at responding to cyberbullying, or preventing cyberbullying, excuse me, and we look at this concept of the whole education approach. So if you're familiar with the 2013 guidelines, we talk about a whole school approach. UNESCO have new recommendations in this area, recommending a whole education approach, which recognises that bullying goes beyond the school and looks at all the considerations there. So we take educators through that concept. We look at the relevant policies. So educators will look at their school policies when they go through the course, and this is your acceptable use policy, your code of behaviour, and your anti-bullying policy as well. And we look at how schools can address cyberbullying through the curriculum. The relevant resources and programmes are there, and we've got 2 fantastic good practice examples from schools doing brilliant work in this area. So we visit a school in South Dublin who engage in the Garda Schools programme as part of their cyberbullying prevention awareness work, and a school in North Dublin, which we just visited last week, doing brilliant work with their digital safety ambassadors. So they're embedded in there as well. And we look at how schools can promote an anti-bullying culture through whole school community initiatives. And these are things like the Yellow Flag programme, Safer Internet Day, Stand Ups Belong To Week. There's some fantastic initiatives schools can get involved in. Finally, lesson 3 looks at responding to cyberbullying. So we look at the steps teachers can take if they encounter a cyberbullying incident in their classroom, clear guidance in this area on what their roles, what their responsibilities are, because that was one of the big things that came up in our consultations. You know, some teachers felt that they weren't fully clear on what the school's role in cyberbullying was as well. We look at responses to addressing bullying behaviour, how you know, the steps you can take in reporting with the social media accounts, all those areas as well. Practical advice and supports for students and classroom teachers, and we look at some really good advice and steps on how teachers can create a safe, respectful and inclusive classroom environment. Some really good points Prachi made earlier as well. And also that was another thing that came out of our consultations, getting parents involved in prevention and communicating with parents if their child has been involved in incidents, which is a sensitive and tricky area. So that's an overview of the new course which will be available. Post-primary will be available in September. Go on our website, sign up to our newsletter, or follow us on social media. That you will find out updates on how to access that. It's free to access, and you can sign up and do it in your own time. But I'll just finish up by highlighting some of our resources for parents. So we have a dedicated hub for parents, the Webwise Parents Hub. It's regularly updated, and it's a great starting point for parents who feel like, oh gosh, I don't know where to start in this area, you know, and my kid knows a lot more than I do. That's okay. This is a brilliant place to get informed. There's explainer guides on the most popular apps, TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram. We have a whole range of expert advice videos from child psychologists, parenting experts answering questions like, is my child spending too much time online? Or how do I teach my child about respect and consent online? We have conversation starters, practical how-to guides, and our most recent tool, which I have to say I'm a big fan of, the topic generator. So go onto our hub, you press the big yellow button, sit down as a family, and it'll serve you up a series of open-ended questions, free from judgment, free from criticism, that allows families to talk about digital life, about life online, and I suppose it's a great way to help them kind of come up with rules and agreements. It asks things like, oh, how do you know if something's fake online? Or, you know, how do you know if somebody is who they say they are online? Or what would you do if something went wrong online? So it's a great tool for families to have those conversations. And of course, we have our Webwise Parents Guide, which was updated this year, and it's available in hard copy for schools to order. So schools might order this at the beginning of a school year, or disseminate them at parent-teacher meetings or information evenings. So another brilliant free resource. So I'll hand back to Anton now, and thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Jane. Much appreciated. Jane was talking there about the services that can be provided by Webwise to schools, and also about the kind of experiences that schools are having. We're going to drill a little bit more into that latter, get a view from the schools themselves, and we're going to do that through the good offices of a HSCL teacher by the name of James Hayden, who is based in Balbriggan, Educate Together, who recorded an interview a little before the session today. You can roll the VT there, guys.
So Barnardo's online safety programme, we're really lucky to go to Balbriggan Educate Together School to do workshops back in February. So we spoke to 2 5th classes and 2 6th classes, but then we also did a parent workshop in the evening. And we were so impressed to see that this particular school got 122 parents registered to go to the parent workshop. And then actually even 90 people came on the night, which is unheard of. Normally, you know, a good workshop take-up will be maybe 30 or 40, and then maybe 20 people come on the day. So we were really impressed with this particular school in Balbriggan. So we have today James Hayden. He is the HSCL teacher in the school. So he's going to talk to us now about how he did it, how he got all those parents to come, but then also just about cyberbullying in schools at the moment and kind of what might help from his perspective. So thanks for coming to talk to us, James.
No problem at all, Cliona. Thank you.
Great. So just for anybody that doesn't know, what is a HSCL teacher?
Okay, so the HSCL teacher is the home school community liaison teacher, and that's a position that comes with DESH status. So the Delivering Equality in Schools program, the department designate different schools as DESH Band 1 or DESH Band 2, and we're very fortunate. We're DESH Band 1, so we get additional funding, we get access to school meals, school completion program, but also a full-time HSCL teacher. So that's me at the moment. I'm in my second year right now, and it's a role that any permanent class teacher in the school can fill for a period of 5 years. And there's lots of different training associated with that through TUSLA and TESS and many other agencies. But yeah, so I'm in my second year, like I said, and so far so good.
Great, wonderful. So I know you've done some research and you've kind of asked some other teachers in your school and the principal too, but just about kind of this obviously is a cyberbullying webinar. So are there many, like all schools in Ireland, are there many incidences about cyberbullying in your school, or just, and if so, could you maybe give some examples of them?
Yeah, well, there like you said, certainly are, and no different to any other school. We would have ongoing, and to be honest, increasing numbers of incidents over the years as children have, as gaming has changed, smartphones have totally changed it, things like that. But yeah, we would, unfortunately, we would encounter quite a few of these kind of issues. I suppose things like, it started off with groups, children being excluded from kind of WhatsApp groups and things like that, and then things being said about them, or even the worry and the fear, the anxiety of things being said about you when you're being excluded. So that's a classic kind of bullying tactic. Things like fake profiles were set up on different social media sites from time to time. People would communicate through that profile then and, maybe say some mean things about others, but again, getting the wrong person in trouble or victimizing a particular person or a group. We would have had issues with photographing and sharing of photographs, some of a personal nature, things like that, or getting into the wrong hands. We would have definitely had children sharing, I suppose, inappropriate stuff that they've accessed online or that has been sent to their phones, or whatever the case may be. We've had, people maybe using video recording devices when they weren't permitted to do in the classroom or whatever. So all of these things are happening and take quite a lot of effort to deal with, like things. And also, I would say, like people with these smartphones and stuff, like even like racist and homophobic and sexist kind of rhetoric and language it seems to make it a lot easier to comment in that way, and that's another problem we have. So it's the classic bully of standing in front of you and being mean to you is I'm sure still around, but like we have this added really complex layer now of cyberbullying, and then the necessity for our children and everybody to be safe while online. So yeah, a lot of issues.
Some of these incidents may be happening at home, but then how does it impact on their learning or in the classroom?
Well, I suppose like the victim of any of these type of behaviors is always going to feel very much alone. Like that's the nature of bullying, and so excluded. So their morale, their self-esteem is completely affected. They might become withdrawn in the class, and the teacher may not know for what reasons, nor might the parent. Also, then there's things that happen in day to day and that get reported to the teacher that the teacher has to try and deal with then. So that takes up a lot of time. And if you're not directly involved with it, there's a lot of he said, they said, especially with like, the apps where the messages disappear quite quickly. And also, so all of these things, and then parents, of course, would come and wish to speak to teachers and to the school management about incidents, and that will take up an awful lot of time. And it's all really, really important, don't get me wrong. So, but it does have a huge impact in the school day, and huge repercussions. Yeah.
Or do you have any idea about what might help, as in to reduce these kind of cyberbullying incidents? Like I know bullying is hard to get rid of completely, but just from a school's perspective, what might help with regards to this cyberbullying?
Yeah, well, the way I would see it is like probably first and foremost is ongoing training. So the amount of different avenues, or I'm not even sure what the right word, but the amount of different platforms there are online now for children to use, or for children to be accessed, like, or for other kids to connect with them online. There's so many, and they're ever changing. On all the different messenger, instant messaging groups and all that. So I don't think we're on top of that. Like, I mean, technology has just kind of passed us out a little bit. It's just going at a quicker pace. Let's put it that way. It might not pass us out fully, but we need to commit. We need to realize that there's a problem, number one, and there is a problem. And then we need to commit to try to upskill, to try and help to solve the problem. And I would see that as a real kind of, I suppose, partnership arrangement where, like, the parents have to step up and we can help them there. The teachers certainly have to step up, any local organizations, things like that. So, you know, there's that issue. There's the child protection concerns as well of children online. So it's not just bullying, there's real safety concerns. So I think upskilling, specific training programs, really good open channels of communication between the child and the teacher, between each other, the children and their peers, between parents and the teacher. So taking things seriously, recording them, and then working out where are the gaps? Why do we not know what's going on here? And then, like, of course, then there's the actual physical and practical things, like making sure that children are using age-appropriate online platforms. You know, that they're not getting these mad, crazy, like, computer games for Christmas when they're only 8, 9, 10 years old. You know what I mean? So there's an age rating on them for a reason. The actual parental control, we try and help parents with them, whether it's referring them to the Webwise work, whether it's giving them the most up-to-date literature around it and helping them to access those supports. So there's practical things we can do, but there's also really, like I said at the beginning, like, that commitment to saying, yes, we have a problem, we need to find the solutions together.
Wonderful. And just my last question is, how did you get the 122 people kind of registered? Because I just know that, you know, it can be hard to get the parents involved, or, you know, so what did you do, or how was it done?
Well, I suppose the first thing I'd say is, because there'll be lots of teachers and principals listening to this, like, we're very fortunate to have a designated HSEL teacher. So there is time. But again, a bit like the parents, we can't just assume that that's the only thing. We actually have to commit as well. Like, so even if we don't have a HSEL teacher, I think what we have to do is try and meet parents face to face and say, listen, this is a real life problem we have at the moment. Teachers, we're all trying to upskill. You need to commit to that as well, and we want to help you. So I was fortunate to have the time and the kind of the opportunities to meet the parents for about 2 weeks each morning, coming in, like, reminding them, telling them that I have this expectation that they will go, because I would have recorded, or a school would have recorded, any incidents of cyberbullying or anything to do with online safety. Any of those incidents were recorded. So I did ring those families. I said, listen, here's now your opportunity with us to upskill. Being with Barnardos was very, very useful for me as well, because Barnardos had that track record of a proven track record of being child-centered. So we didn't need the parents to come and fill out forms. We didn't need them to participate in research. We didn't need any of that. This was real, concrete action, and from a reputable organization. So that really did help. Really what it was like, just kept talking to them, kept ringing them, kept reminding them, and kept telling them that this is a collective responsibility we have to protect the children online. And here is one tangible thing you can do, and you can say you did. Because when you ring up and you talk to me about something that's happened, I'm going to say to you, did you attend a course? What did we learn? Where can we go from here? And what we do next? So even after, we've done a lot of follow-up stuff with parents just to keep them in the loop, because I want the same amount of people to sign up the next time we do it. You know what I mean? And even more. So that's it. Putting it to right.
Your emphasis on we there. So it's not just, you know, the parents, you have to learn this. Is like, how are we as a school community, or just as a whole school approach, how are we all going to keep children safe online? So that's a really nice message to give to kind of other people as well. So I think that's our time now, but thank you so much for coming to speak to us today, and it was really insightful, and thanks so much for your time.
No problem at all, Cliona. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, a big thank you to James there and Cliona, of course, for conducting that interview. So we've now heard from schools, we've heard from students, we've heard from support services, we've heard from Barnardos. Time to look at the policy side of things and the governmental side of things, because it's 2013 was when the government launched the action plan on bullying. That's 9 years ago at this stage. So they're in the process of updating that, and they're in the middle of a public consultation. And to get the details on that update plan and on that public consultation process, we're joined by Principal Officer from the Department of Education, Judith Lyons. Over to you, Judith.
Thank you very much, Anton. Good morning, everyone. My name is Judith Lyons and I'm a Principal Officer working in Parents and Learners Unit of the Department of Education. Firstly, I would like to thank Barnardos for inviting me to speak to you today about the work that the Department is progressing to review the 2013 Action Plan on Bullying and the anti-bullying procedures for schools. I'm going to speak about the approach that we are taking with this work and the recently opened public consultation process. As we all know, a lot has changed since the Action Plan on Bullying was published in 2013. There have been significant changes in technology and society, and there is a lot of up-to-date research to consider. We want to have an education system where every child and young person feels valued and is actively supported and nurtured to reach their full potential. To achieve this, we must take a holistic whole-of-education approach to promote a positive environment in schools and to ensure that bullying is proactively and fully addressed when and where it might arise. This work on anti-bullying is part of work that the department has been progressing in relation to well-being. In 2018, the department launched a national well-being policy statement and framework for practice. The well-being policy provides an overarching framework for schools to support a comprehensive, multi-component approach to supporting the well-being of all members of the school community and to prevent and tackle bullying in schools. It recognises that schools exist within a wider system and the importance of the interconnectedness of the school with the wider community in its approach in relation to well-being and in bullying prevention and intervention. In reviewing the Action Plan on Bullying, we are very cognizant of the need to take a whole education approach. This was already referenced earlier by Jane from Webwise. UNESCO's whole education approach to tackle bullying contains 9 core components. These are strong political leadership and robust legal and policy framework, learner empowerment and participation, safe psychological and physical school and classroom environment, curriculum, learning and teaching to promote a caring school climate, monitoring of school bullying and evaluation of responses, involvement of all stakeholders in the school community, reporting mechanisms for learners affected by bullying, training and support for school staff, and finally, collaboration and partnerships between the education sector and a wide range of partners. Each of the 9 components is essential to effectively prevent and tackle bullying in schools. Using the whole education approach to review the Action Plan on Bullying will help ensure that the updated action plan is in line with up-to-date research and includes all the elements of a comprehensive and holistic national response by education to bullying. The Department's 2013 Action Plan on Bullying sets out 12 key actions to help prevent and tackle bullying in schools. Many of the actions in the Action Plan relate to awareness raising and research and have been implemented. However, as part of the review of this Action Plan, we must consider what actions are missing and what actions need strengthening so that our response incorporates the 9 components of the whole education approach. In February of this year, Minister Foley established a steering committee to review the Action Plan on Bullying. The steering committee is chaired externally and consists of 23 members, which include the education partners and other external experts and representatives of advocacy organisations. The steering committee have had 6 meetings to date. Presentations have been made from a wide range of academics, relevant organisations and interested parties. The steering committee is specifically considering the area of cyberbullying, identity bullying and sexual harassment, amongst other areas. We are also giving detailed consideration to the recommendations contained in the Oireachtas Joint Committee report on school bullying and the impact on mental health, which was published last August. The anti-bullying procedures for primary and post-primary schools is also being updated and reviewed in parallel with this work. A working group comprised of representatives from each of the relevant management bodies and teacher and school staff unions has been established to review the anti-bullying procedures. An extensive consultation process is underway to inform our work. This consists of focus groups with children and young people, focus groups with school staff, engagement of the steering committee with children and young people, parents and teachers. A key part of the consultation process is a public consultation which has just opened and which will be open until the 21st of June. This consists of a request for online written submissions and completion of an online questionnaire. The consultation is available on the consultation page of gov.ie, and also the link is in my last slide, and I understand it will be made available on the Barnardos website. I would like to ask you all to have your say and participate in the public consultation process. Your submissions will help ensure that our work to prevent and tackle bullying in schools will be informed by the views of as many children and young people, parents, school staff, education partners, and individual members of the public as possible. All children deserve to feel happy and safe in our schools, and we need your views and ideas on how we can prevent and tackle bullying to ensure that this happens. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Judith. Obviously, the Department of Education has responsibility for the issue of school bullying and for policies in relation to school bullying within the school environment or pertaining to students within the school. But the government response and the government responsibility goes much further than that, because, of course, it sets the laws that pertain to all media, whether it be traditional, whether it be social, whether it be new. And we're going to look a little bit about that, at that policy side of things with our next speaker. He's a senior policy analyst from the Department of Arts, Culture, Sports, Tourism, Gaeltacht and the Media. And he's going to be talking about the current laws that are enacted and the laws that are underway. So will you please welcome Kieran Shanley. All yours, Kieran.
Thanks, Anton. First, I'd like to thank Barnardos and Google for organising today's event, and to thank all the previous speakers and particular members of the Webwise Youth Panel for all their good contributions so far. So I'm here today to talk to you about how the Irish government is working through new legislation to make the online environment safer for all of us, but particularly children, the Online Safety and Media Regulation Bill. So this bill consists of a number of key parts, but key to the discussions today is that the bill will establish a new regulator, Comisiún na Meán, or the Media Commission in the English language, which will include an online safety commissioner who will enforce a robust regulatory framework for online safety. Now, in terms of this regulatory framework, it's quite complicated, but it consists of two key pillars, which is the regulation of online services based on risk assessments. This includes social media services and other user and interactive kind of services, places where children do interact with each other quite frequently. And the bill also contains well-defined categories of harmful online content, including categories that relate to cyberbullying, harassment, and abusive messaging. In particular, the bill contains a category of harmful online content about bullying, cyberbullying. This category of harmful online content is defined quite broadly, but it is subject to an interpretative risk test. Now, what this means is that content is only considered cyberbullying content where it meets this risk test. And that risk test is related to threat to life at this very, very high end, and a significant and reasonably foreseeable risk to a person's physical or mental health on the lower end. Now, this category is in addition to other categories which relate to the offences, the criminal offences under Coco's law, which was previously mentioned by Jane from Webwise, which relate to harassment, abusive messaging, and similar behaviours. So these two pillars come together in the form of binding online safety codes, which will be made by the Media Commission and which designated online services will have to comply with. Now, what will these codes contain? Now, the precise detail is up to the Media Commission, the regulator, and it will change over time to adapt to changing circumstances. But broadly, it will address two key things. One, content moderation. So this is how platforms deal with harmful online content once it becomes available, including how they respond to user complaints. And secondly, content delivery. Now, this is how platforms can work to ensure that harmful online content doesn't become available in the first instance, including through dealing with issues in relation to recommendation engines. The Commission will also have particular education, awareness raising and cooperation functions. So the Commission will engage with media literacy organisations, support Media Literacy Ireland, engage with Webwise, Barnardos and a lot of the good organisations you've heard from here today as well, and act as a centre of gravity for all of this good work that's ongoing. The Commission will enforce the regulatory framework for online safety through a robust suite of powers, including very strong investigative and information gathering powers. Ultimately, if a designated online service does not comply with the rules that apply to them through the online safety codes, they can be subject to fines of up to €20 million or 10% of their turnover. The bill is currently before the Oireachtas, in particular the Seanad, and is undergoing the normal legislative process. It's quite extensive scrutiny that it's been subject to, and hundreds of amendments have been submitted to the bill by various interested senators, which I think shows you the depth of feeling and the interest that our lawmakers have in this area and in this particular piece of legislation. The enactment of the legislation is a priority of government. It's in the programme for government, and it's hoped that the legislative process will be gone through quickly and the bill enacted. In addition to this, Minister Catherine Martin, the Minister for Media, had appointed an expert group to examine the possibility of introducing an individual complaints mechanism into this regulatory framework. An individual complaints mechanism is where a person could complain to the regulator about an individual piece of harmful online content. There are particular practical issues with this, which the Minister has tasked the expert group with examining, hoping that they can find a way forward for this to work in practice. The Minister is due to receive the report of the expert group shortly. Thereafter, she will determine next steps in consultation with her Cabinet colleagues, and hopefully a solution can be found towards a way forward on that particular issue. Thank you very much, and thank you all for tuning in and listening today.
Thank you very much, Kieran. Much appreciated. Just a reminder, folks, there's going to be a quick panel discussion at the end of the session, so if you do want to get your questions in, you can pop them into the comments box under the streaming video, or you can send them to the email address that I gave you earlier on. Now, we've heard from Kieran in respect of what the Department responsible for Media is doing. We've heard from the Department of Education. We've heard from schools. We've heard from young people. Of course, it's a bit Hamlet without the prince so far, because we haven't yet heard from the tech industry, and that's where we're going to go next. If you cast your mind back to what we were saying about the action plan on bullying, the first of those that is now being updated was created in 2013. Some of the platforms that are most popular with young children didn't even exist at that point and have come into existence since that time. YouTube obviously predates it, and we're going to be hearing from somebody from YouTube given its popularity among young people in a second, that being Ian Bundred, who will make us all jealous by dialing in from Venice. But before that, a platform that I think only started in about 2015, 2016 and has grown exponentially to become one of the most popular and one of the most influential among young people. We'll be hearing about what it is doing, it of course being TikTok, in relation to preventing cyberbullying. And we'll do that through the good offices of Susan Moss.
Thank you, and hello everyone. My name is Susan and I work at TikTok, and I'm going to take you through some of our safety features on TikTok that you as educators, as parents and as guardians can adopt to help keep your teens and your students safe on TikTok. Now, some of you might be familiar with TikTok, but just to introduce ourselves briefly, TikTok is an entertainment platform on which users can create, watch and engage with a wide variety of short form videos. Now, videos are typically 15 seconds long, but they can be longer. And everyone uses those videos, those seconds differently. So our users and our creators, they come from all types of communities across Ireland, with ages ranging from 13 upwards. But trust and safety is a central pillar of our work at TikTok because our community has to feel safe. In fact, one of our global trust and safety hubs is right here in Ireland. And we use technology and human interface to moderate the content and to help promote a safer, positive environment on TikTok. Now, at TikTok, safety isn't just something that we bolt on at the end. It's a cornerstone, and that's especially true when it comes to our teenage users. And as you know, and as I know, adolescence is a transformative phase, and it's different for each family. And at TikTok, we know that we have to constantly improve to ensure that we're creating age-appropriate experiences. And we're working really hard to provide families with tools and features to make the content decisions that are right for them. Now, we're an app for users aged 13 and over, and users will be asked to enter their age upon entering the app for the first time. So if a user is under the age of 13, they won't be able to sign up to TikTok. Now, if evidence shows that a user is underage, then we have processes to investigate, and if warranted, we will remove that account. Now, parents can also choose to block TikTok from their child's phone from the Apple or the Google Play Store. And from those stores, you have the rating for TikTok is 12+. And this can help in instances where you might have a child who's under the age of 13 who has access to a mobile phone. Now, there's 5 stages of age assurance, and the more tools that we have to add a bit of friction to prevent children from circumventing some of those rules on age, I think it's a better chance that we have at TikTok to help preventing under 13s from accessing our platform. Now, in addition to addressing some of those issues when they arise, we take an upstream approach and we build safety into the design of our services. So direct messaging is a good example of that. Users can't send unsolicited messages, and we don't permit images or videos to be sent as attachments from the ages of 13 to 15. Now, this is a deliberate decision on our part to prevent child sexual abuse material being spread via our messaging service. Now, we recognise that for caregivers, for parents, for educators, for guardians, it can really feel really overwhelming to try and keep up with all the evolving trends and all the new platforms and all the new technology. And it's really difficult, we understand, to talk to your teenager about online safety, and it can seem really daunting. So what I'm going to do is let's take a look at the things that you can do on TikTok. So we know that creativity and expression are personal, but so is privacy. And the default privacy setting for all registered accounts is active for ages 13 to 15. It's private. And with a private TikTok account, only someone who the user approves as a follower can view their videos. And we've tightened who can comment on videos that are created by those aged 13 to 15. These users can now choose between friends or no one at all. And we want to help our younger users in particular develop a positive digital habit early on. And we regularly consult with pediatric experts and with youth wellbeing advocates. And recently we conducted some research, and that led to one really significant change on our platform. And what it's led to is the reduction of the time period during which our younger teens can receive push notifications. So as a result of this consultation, what we've now done is accounts aged 13 to 15 won't receive push notifications from 9 p.m. and accounts aged 16 to 17 will have push notifications completely disabled after 10 p.m. I want to move on to the parents and family pairing function, and that's really how we're going to help you today. We've introduced family pairing, and that lets parents and guardians connect their TikTok account to their teens' accounts to help guide them to the type of content available for their teen, to promote healthy screen time habits, and to choose appropriate messaging settings. Now, I'd strongly encourage all of the parents, all of the educators here today to adopt this tool and to ask educators to encourage parents to do the same. And at the same time, it's also important for us at TikTok to acknowledge that every family is different, which is why we offer such a wide range of choices and settings. But I have to be absolutely clear, the tools that we offer parents are not monitoring tools, because young people do have a right to privacy, but we believe it is appropriate for parents to be able to set the parameters, especially as teens are starting out on our platform. Now, what family parenting the tool allows is to link your TikTok account as a parent to the TikTok account of your teen, and to set the following controls. And they include screen time management. So you can control how long your teen can spend on TikTok each day. And in addition, TikTok has partnered with top creators to make short videos that appear right inside the app and encourages the users to keep tabs on their screen time. We've also introduced restricted mode, and that means that you as a parent can limit the appearance of content that might not be appropriate for all audiences. We've also introduced a search disabling function, so you can decide whether your teen can search for content, search for users, search for hashtags or sounds. There's also a commenting feature, so you can decide who can comment on your teen's videos. There's also a liked videos feature. As a parent, this control empowers families to decide whether others can see the list of videos that your teen has liked. And we've developed this feature to encourage a dialogue between parents and teens about their online experience. Now, parents and guardians only have access to the settings that I've listed. They won't have access to the videos that your teen has watched, the messages or the comments that their teen has sent, or the accounts that your teen has interacted with. I also want to touch on some of the features that help promote kindness and prevent bullying. And it's perhaps a step before reporting, as we're trying to provide users with the tools to stop and think before they make a decision which might be harmful to other users, as an important step in helping prevent bullying on the platform. We've introduced the ability to delete multiple comments at once or report them for potentially violating our community guidelines. And accounts that post bullying or other negative comments can now be blocked in bulk too. I want to share a hypothetical with all of you today on one of the challenges that we face at TikTok, which is context-based bullying. So let's say, for an example, an Irish teenager goes into school in an old pair of runners because maybe their family isn't in a position, to buy the latest or the most expensive pair of runners. Let's say that every time that teenager posts a video, some of the comments are, "Love the runners, box fresh," or an emoji featuring a pair of runners. What's really happening here is he's being targeted or mocked for his pair of runners, maybe for his socioeconomic status. There's no way that we can understand what's happening here, because it's a context that's off platform. And something like that, in as an example, may not violate our community guidelines, because in the first instance, our machine learning and our human moderators don't know the story or the context behind these comments. So there's not one single solution or a magic bullet. It takes an approach from all of us in tech, with you as educators and parents working to help together to help our teenagers behave responsibly online and be kinder to one another. Now, in addition to empowering creators with more tools, we also want to encourage our community to treat everyone with kindness and respect. And a new comment prompt feature that we have now asks people to consider posting a comment that might be inappropriate or unkind. And it also reminds users about our community guidelines and allows them to edit their comments before sharing. As I mentioned at TikTok, we're committed to working in partnership with parents and guardians as they've supported their teens' digital journey. We've also heard from Irish teens, and they've asked that they want their voices to be heard, they want to be listened to. They ask that you don't panic when things go wrong. They ask that you trust them as parents. They've also asked that you respect their privacy. And we've expanded family pairing by adding these features for parents developed in collaboration with teens. And just finally, TikTok has a reporting mechanism in-app, and it's the quickest and most effective way to have potentially harmful content reviewed and subsequently removed. And TikTok aims to remove this content within 72 hours as quickly as possible. And content that violates TikTok's community guidelines or terms of services may be reported through the app in the first instance. However, for educators, if you are dissatisfied with the result of that report, you can report to a dedicated channel that we've set up in Ireland for educators. And Barnardos will share that contact information with you via email after today. I know that was a very brief overview, but I'd just like to close by saying thank you very much. We understand at TikTok that we don't see that there is a finish line when it comes to safety, and we'll continue to listen to your feedback from our partners and actively explore new and innovative ways to keep our community safe on TikTok. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susan. And as I said earlier about the level of popularity from TikTok, same is true of YouTube, hugely popular among young people and children, the platform that is currently hosting us. And in the same way as there is a responsibility taken seriously by TikTok, the same is true of YouTube. And we're going to be hearing now from the man whose role it is to look after public policy within that platform. So I'll hand over now to Ian Bundred.
Thanks so much, and good morning to everyone. Thanks for having me. So I'm here to talk a little bit about how YouTube looks to deliver age-appropriate experiences, and with a particular focus on cyberbullying. I'm also going to be joining the roundtable in a few minutes' time. So I'm just going to canter through a few slides to sort of set out how we do things at scale, and I hope to continue the conversation after that presentation. So first off, what are we talking about when we talk about YouTube online? Unlike many other platforms, we have a bespoke app for kids, YouTube Kids. Huge numbers of followers worldwide, and quite popular, I believe, here in Ireland. But we've also sort of thinking about how do we make sure we deliver the gap between YouTube Main and YouTube Kids, as we saw increasing amounts of feedback of young people, particularly in that awful phrase, tweenagers. The sort of those just getting ready for the teenage years, a sense of ability to see more of YouTube. And that's why we've launched in beta the YouTube Parent Supervised Experiences app, which I'll come to talk about in a second. That for us is a major part of helping young people see more of what's available on YouTube, but over time also have a better and more appropriate age experience. On top of that, of course, we make sure that everything that is on YouTube Main has added protections for those who are 13 to 18. And that's a really important part of some of the changes we've done, which I'll go to talk about in a second. So I mentioned the desire for us to do this at scale. And really, I just want to hit you with three numbers that show that point. So firstly, 25 million. On YouTube Kids, we have 25 million weekly active users. That just says to you that this is not a small piece of the internet. This is actually a huge and vibrant part where creators are creating content that is made for your kids and made particularly for primary school age. But at the same time, we know that YouTube Kids is often not enough. We've seen that lots and lots of kids have started to try and find ways around our age systems. And that's why we've had an extra push on using machine learning to remove inappropriate accounts. So that's those who've claimed to be over 13 and therefore available to watch YouTube Main, but our system suggests is actually failing to do so. So 7 million accounts actioned just in Q1 and Q3 of last year. So a huge focus of that, and that shows how machine learning can help us deliver the appropriate level of content to kids at your schools and your children. But finally, we also need to use the machines to actually make sure we have very strong child appropriate content. So globally, we've removed 1.8 million videos just in the last quarterly report. We've got a number here. That's about CSAM and child sexual abuse material, yes, and we heard some calls about that from my colleague from TikTok. But actually, a lot of it's just about making sure that things like cyberbullying and things that are not right for young people to be exposed to are not online. And so we use a combination of machines and then also human moderators to try and capture both the clearly illegal and irresponsible stuff, but also that context-specific video content that my colleague was talking about. I wanted to talk about supervised experiences, and this is a really important part of our growing approach to tackling things like cyberbullying, because what it's about is about giving parents more control. So hopefully you're all aware of Google Family Link. It's a long-running program and product that's been available for kids across all Google apps. On YouTube, we started to use a Family Link approach to ensure that the parents choose the content setting with 3 sets of content between a sort of level of explore most, and most of YouTube, which tries to ramp up the amount of content you might share with your kids as they're starting to become more solo on the YouTube main app. but it also adjusts the experience. So there's things like disable features, default autoplay, and setting time limits across YouTube and other apps. This is all about giving you guys control and giving schools as well, where necessary, dealing with the parents, the control they need to find the appropriate experience. But it's not. We don't just stop there. We do a huge amount across, both enforcing our policies to protect young people, using technology to identify the more egregious stuff, and also setting privacy and well-being products. And just before we run out of time, I want to talk very specifically about a couple of those pieces. So disabling comment and reducing recommendations are huge parts of, I think, ensuring that we have the most appropriate experience for young people. And we've heard a lot this morning from some of the great speakers about the difference between having a restricted perhaps access to your phones versus having it removed entirely. So what we're trying to do is be mindful of some of the points that that the fantastic ambassador mentioned earlier, and ensure that yes, the people who shouldn't be using our app inappropriately are not on there, and that the content that's clearly against our policies is removed. But also trying to think through what is it that someone who, for example, is under 13 but is using supervised experience with parental oversight, or perhaps someone who's 13, 14, 15 but still starting to discover about think about what they want to do online. It's getting to see the right content. On YouTube Kids, this is even more restricted, of course, because we recognise that sort of younger cohort needs a smaller amount, has less advertising, etc. But it's all about trying to find the ways that the product can help you deliver the right experience and content for young people. Additional to that is the way we deal with data. I've mentioned already that we stop serving personal ads and content entirely, but also we treat anyone watching children's content on YouTube as being from that of a child, so that those people who, for example, might come in not signed in, or may even just be using a spare device, that we're giving them the age-appropriate experience. And we'll work with creators to make sure they have the best possible content. A part of that, of course, is our quality principles for kids and family content. If you think through what is, there's no good knowing what the age of a viewer is or what app they're on within the YouTube family, unless we are giving them the right content that's appropriate to their pieces. So this penultimate slide just shows some of the principles we do around trying to encourage, making sure that negative behavior attitudes are not being shown to those younger users, that things that are sensational, misleading might be reduced in recommendations, or perhaps not even allowed at all in the case of YouTube Kids. Now, I've whisked through a lot of content there, and the reason for that is I wanted to give you guys a sense of the scale of which we're trying to achieve these points on YouTube. But I also want to draw on the point around cyberbullying in particular, and actually how we as platforms can be more supportive of the conversations that we need to have. And we heard already a lot today about the importance of conversations with teachers, the importance of conversations with young people and with parents. I think the other thing I would add to that triumvirate is actually using the great powers that platforms have in terms of YouTube creators. And creators are our secret sauce. They're the most popular piece of reason that people come to places like YouTube and TikTok, you've heard before. And that's why we've recently invested in a major program called YouTube Reframe, which is available now. Just go to yt.be/reframe. That's yt.be/reframe, or search YouTube Reframe. And you'll start to see some videos that are designed for exactly that same audience, the kind of young people who are coming through, starting to use not just the internet, but actually social media for the first time. We've got creators like Munichiawa interviewing people about their online experiences. There's a specific one about online abuse and how that makes you feel. There's a good one around with Adam B from Belfast, who talks about about playing the right line on living the right amount of time online, something that I know that this conference spoke about last year. And there's a whole bunch of content that we're going to keep adding to over time, because we see that as a platform, we need to not just take the right policies in place and implement the right pieces of content, but we've also got to encourage those conversations. And I think if I had one takeaway from today, it's that those conversations are so critical for us all to be part of. That's why I'm really pleased to have joined you. Thanks very much.
Ian, thank you very much. We're joined, Cliona is back. Billy has joined us. Billy is on the Youthwise Advisory, or the Webwise Youth Advisory Panel. She's also been involved in the Better Internet for Kids programme. And it's that where I want to start, because the Better Internet for Kids strategy, published earlier this month, outlined that cyberbullying remains the most reported topic to the Safer Internet Centre. Were you surprised by that, Billy?
Thank you, Anton. No, I wasn't surprised at all. And I think it's safe to say that no other youth member would be surprised that cyberbullying is the most reported topic. And I think to understand why cyberbullying is still such a large issue despite our advancements in technology, we need to understand what cyberbullying actually is. You see, cyberbullying is what we would call an umbrella term. It features many different types of negative behaviour online, like, for example, maybe unwanted messages, like nasty comments online, directed discriminatory language, maybe at a specific person or a group of people, and the list goes on. And I think the education around why this is and what cyberbullying really is where we learn as to why it's so hard to eradicate. Because when cyberbullying covers so many different topics and so many different types of behaviours online, it's next to impossible to completely eradicate. But I think the only way that we are going to be able to minimise it as a society online is through educating young people and, I suppose, older generations as to what cyberbullying is, because it's such a loosely used term, and at the end of the day, not many people actually understand it.
Did you see an increase in it over the past couple of years? Because obviously so much of life for everybody, young, middle-aged and old, moved online. Was there an increase in cyberbullying because of that?
Oh, 100%. I suppose when you think about it, we went into lockdowns. Nobody expected to, but we ended up going from spending maybe 3 to 4 hours a day online on social media, maybe after school till the evening time. And that increased to spending from, 9 o'clock in the morning till maybe 10 o'clock at night online all of the time. It was our only communication with the outside world, and we were doing online school. So the laws of logic would tell you then that with a larger time frame spent online, increase in cyberbullying would occur. And I suppose that's what we saw. We saw it on every platform, whether it be direct messages in the likes of WhatsApp, maybe posts on Instagram or messages on TikTok, whatever it may be. We did see it increase drastically amongst young people as they moved their whole life to an online setting.
The point you make about the nebulous nature of it, that is how hard it is to define, I wanted just, Ian, to get your view on this very quickly, if I might. Susan talked about some of the kinds of behaviours that are difficult for the AI and the algorithms to catch on TikTok because they're without context. Prachi earlier talked about things like doxing or private information that might get uploaded against the person's will. From a YouTube perspective, is the AI quick enough and smart enough to use those things, to find those things that require context, that might look like an innocuous video being posted, but to the person involved in it, it could be either embarrassing or personally revealing?
So I think the AI is getting smarter all the time, and we've seen a real increase in the ability of our products to capture some of this abuse material quickly. I would say though, technology isn't perfect, and Susan's point earlier I think was good on around context can be very specific. It's why it's important that everyone does report when they see content that's concerning to them, either as a parent, a teacher, or as an individual user. I do think though, as was just said, we saw during lockdown a real increase in the amount of content that we were removing on YouTube for child safety policies, also for harassment, which a lot of, say, doxing would come under for our policies. And part of that is because that combination of machines learning over time, exactly what is sort of violative material, what is the stuff that's breaking our policies, and a real increase in human moderators, because all platforms are investing hugely in these moderators, in Dublin and elsewhere. I think that means that we're improving the ability to capture it, but it's by no means perfect, and we've all got a long way to go.
I want to finish on that thing of the human moderator, because obviously for a lot of children, a lot of young people, the ultimate human moderator will be the concerned parent. And Cliona, to give you the last word for the entire session this morning, for parents who are watching this, and for parents who may have immediate acute concerns that their child may be being cyberbullied, or want to know just in case, what advice do you give?
Yeah, to sum it all up, so just what Billy was saying first, we do a lot of that, like is it banter or is it bullying? So kind of having those conversations, because yeah, it can start off as a joke, but then suddenly it's not a joke anymore. So I think it's important for parents to kind of have these conversations as well with children. And then if it does go too far, to say sorry, because sometimes it's not always on purpose, it's not always intentional, but to explain that to children that yes, sometimes other people don't think it's a joke. But obviously if it does go too far, if it's targeted, if it's malicious, things like that, it's important to get the schools involved so that they're aware of kind of how to help in that situation. But most importantly, to keep doing things that the children love doing, because sometimes it's nice to take a break from the phone, play the piano, read a book, whatever it is that kind of makes them feel good, but just to keep checking in and having that relationship with them so that they know that they can come to you if there is a problem.
Cliona, thank you. Thank you as well to Billy. Thank you very much to Ian. Thank you to all of our speakers and contributors today. Thank you particularly to you for joining us for the second webinar in the series. If you want any further data, you can go on barnardos.ie/OSP. Let me just make sure that I got that right.
You did.
I did?
Yeah.
Good. And the guys will email out the link and also an evaluation for the webinar this morning. And the link is going to be up on the website in the next couple of days. So if you missed any of the content or you want to have a look back when you have more time to reflect, the links will be there either sent to you or you can upload. Again, thank you very much for joining us this morning and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.